Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining me this afternoon. And what a great exposition we have here at ISA. The energy is amazing, just to see the growth of technology, the growth of the industry. And for us as Ike GPS and Spike to be a part of that, we're just so proud that we can be able to contribute to ISA and to you as the larger sign industry. For Ike GPS and Spike, 10 years ago, we introduced Spike into the signage industry. That's our laser photo measurement solution, where I see a lot of familiar faces where you attach a laser to the back of your smartphone or tablet, take a photo, and it can measure. And for the last 10 years, we've really been a privilege to be a part of the signage industry, collecting data about signs and measurements and all these other wonderful things. But also, it's given us the capability and the privilege to be in your toolbox for the last 10 years. And over those last 10 years, we've had an amazing opportunity to be able to learn what you do on your site surveys, how you like to do those site surveys, some of the issues and the problems that you face with doing your site surveys. And as we began to learn more and more about those site surveys and some of the challenges and issues that you had with the site surveys, we began to start making a decision that maybe we should really dive into this problem a bit more and see if we can find a way to be able to solve the problems around the site survey, specifically as you guys have shared with us with them over the years. How do you prepare for a site survey? How do you actually do that site survey? How do I get data back? How to create a repeatable process, making sure that everything is captured within that site survey in the way that I would like it to be, whether that's a lobby sign, a channel letter sign, a monument sign. And over those 10 years, because we've now completed over 500,000 surveys with you, believe it or not, Spike is in 16 different languages, used all around the world within the signage industry. And we have around 7,000 customers that use Spike today. But one of the key things that we really learned about site surveys in this journey of us learning more about how you do site surveys, very few people actually like to do site surveys. I see a number of heads going up and down, right? But they're really critically necessary and important because almost every job starts with that site survey. You have to go out, see what the situation is of that site survey. But why do we not like site surveys? Well, that really sort of depends on who you are. Because if you're the shop owner, you know that this is where the problems start. There's inconsistency in the process that your teams are going out and doing that site survey. And there's really unpredictability in the results. You can do a channel survey one month and do a channel letter site survey the next month, get a completely different report back. Things can be missed and other things like that. There's just unpredictability in the results, but also it takes time and resources to actually do these surveys. And it's also wear and tear on the equipment. But for those of you out there that are sales and installers, you also know that there's a difficulty in remembering everything that you have to get. Doing a lobby sign is completely and totally different from doing a monument sign. And there's roughly about 25 different sign types out there. How do you remember that you have to do the very specific steps for the existing sign audit, an electrical audit, the general plot survey, and all those other types of things? This is really hard. And so what we set out to do is to help create organization and solve those problems, because site surveys are risky business. So you heard me say before that almost every job starts with a site survey. And before we embarked on this journey to help put together this solution and solve this problem, we wanted to make sure that we understood how big of a problem this actually is. And we're actually very shocked by those results. We did a very detailed financial assessment, and what we found is that depending upon your sign shop and how much sign production that you do, the average sign shop loses between $50,000 to $75,000 per year due to inconsistent site surveys or bad or sloppy site surveys. And then when you start to calculate that out and multiply that across the entire sign industry as a whole, that equates to almost $500 million in loss. $500 million. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money to me, and it's a lot of money to this industry. And so we set out to say, how can we make this a more consistent and more productive process that doesn't cost the sign industry nearly as much money in doing these surveys? So over these last 10 years, we really sat down and we observed and listened, and we worked with about 50 different sign companies to say, what are your issues on the survey? How do you like to do a site survey for a lobby sign or a windows and graphics sign? How do you like to do channel letters? What's the best process to do that? What are all the things that have to be captured to make this as near as a perfect site survey as we can? And when you get a report back, how would you want that report? How would you like that report organized? How would you like that report formatted? So that every time you got the report back, you knew exactly where to go to find information about that electrical survey, or the photos and measurements, or things around other types of audits that would be done. And what you see behind you is my very first attempt to map out every single sign type that I could find that we could try to attempt and sit there and go, this is exactly what you do for this type of sign, or this type of sign, or this type of sign. And one of the great compliments that I got as I was working with our working group on this was, you know what, James, this is the first time we've ever actually seen the process laid out for us step by step. That these are the key phases that we do. These are every single step that we would do. And this basically captures most of what we would do on a site survey for this type of sign type. And from there, we went to work. And the first thing that we came to there was a challenge was, well, how do we make this available? How do we make this workable? Because I'm sure you've all worked with forms before. 30 different sheets of paper, flipping through all sorts of things, the same steps, even though it doesn't apply to my particular site survey. How do we make this so this works efficiently? And the best way we can come up with is with conditional logic. And you go, okay, conditional logic, that's got to be easy. Well, I assure you it is not. Because what we've come to find out is if you do A, then B happens, and then C happens. But if you don't do A, then B, B versus C, well, then a whole new chain of events starts to happen. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to create smart forms that were logic driven so that if you say, is the sign illuminated, then a whole series of questions opens up. If it isn't, skip it and move on, so that we're speeding up the process, because every minute that you spend on a site survey is $1 that's potentially lost because you don't know you're going to win that job in the first place. But the other part of it is that the more site surveys that you can do in a day or a week and be better at it and be more productive, well, that's money in the pocket. And so that's what we wanted to try to do. And so with this particular model that you see back here is an example of that logic model working in the background as we tried to figure out of how to structure all these things together. And so then we started to break it down into how do you prepare? Well, from the moment a phone call comes in, you're collecting information. But where does that information go? Is it up here? Is it on your computer? Are you writing it down on a piece of paper? That's all great. But the problem is that how do I get that to the person that's going to do that site survey? And then how do you schedule that site survey? And how do you know who's doing what signs? And how do you know what the status of all those things are? These were all the things that our working group told us that these were problems. And we said, we think we can create a dashboard. And that's exactly what we did. So that for the very first time, using SignPilot, you will be able to see all of your customers and your projects and your signs, who's assigned to them, what their status are, what types of signs these all are in an easy to use dashboard. And then we also set out to do an app. And so I'll show you this app here in just a little bit. I'll plug it in and show it to you. But we've created different tabs for different phases and completely different workflows for 22 different sign types. So within the app, within the portal, you can add information that you might collect based upon what you might know about the electrical situation or the existing sign. Take that, and then it will send it to the app. And then the surveyor will see what's already been done and then fill in the blanks or start basically from scratch and finish it off. But each and every one of these sign types have a totally different workflow assigned to them. So that a lobby sign will have everything you need for a lobby sign, window graphics, everything you need for that, channel letter, monument, awning, doesn't matter. Every sign is a little bit different. And by the way, this has been one of the huge challenges that we found when we were doing research. We said, well, somebody's got to have made an app for this, right? Well, they kind of have, right? But they only solve various particular things. Maybe it's photo management, but then there's no process. There's no taking apps, but then there's no process, and there's really nothing for photos and the organization of the measurements or other documents that you might get. we set out to really solve that problem of how do you bring all these things together, but make it applicable because it's applicable to a specific sign type. And it's particular to a particular project and even a particular customer. And we also broke this up between outdoor signs attached to surface, freestanding, and indoor signs. Because you don't want people figuring out attachment types when there is no attachment type or substrate type, or having to sort through the measurement of windows when that doesn't really matter. And we set out to just absolutely nail exactly what's going to happen on that site survey based upon 6 phases that our working group said, this is what we do, and this is how we group things in: an existing sign audit, an outdoor general audit, or an indoor general audit, because that could be a little bit different, electrical assessment, photos, measurements, permitting, elevation, and site plan. And so what I'd like to do now is introduce you to SignPilot, which we consider to be the most advanced site survey solution to help you prepare, manage, and actually do your site surveys. We capture the industry's best practice based upon our 50 members of our working group to make sure we capture the steps in the process. And as I said before, using conditional logic to power that for 22 indoor and outdoor sign types. But the other thing is that when we design this in the context of how do we improve the lives, the working lives of big shops, small ones, national sign companies, your sales teams, your installers, your subcontractors, your designers, and of course your customers. Because all of those people are important when it comes to a process and making sure that we're addressing the needs of all those different types of what we call personas, those individuals. And let's not forget the customer is the number one persona that we really want to make sure that we're taking care of. We want to avoid things like oh, sorry, we forgot to check this, and now there's this situation, and now we have to charge you for that. That is never a good phone call to ever have, ever. And what we try to say, and what we are going to deliver, is that with SignPilot, every SignPilot survey is a better site survey. Just a couple of next steps here as I plug in. One is that if you haven't been to our booth already, I invite you to stop by our booth to see a full demo, actually play around with the app. You can also go to our website and play around with and see the information that we have out there on the website, or I'll be available here for questions here shortly. And so what I'm going to show you here is the app itself, and it's designed to be very straightforward. So here you will see that I have 4 projects. I can cycle through these 4 projects. I can see that I have a channel letter sign, and because I have a channel letter sign, well, I've got 6 phases here. But you know what? If I'm doing a lobby sign, that's entirely different. Now I have 5 because I don't need to do all the outdoor stuff. So everything is focused, everything is organized according to the sign type. We've also created where you can communicate from the office to the salesperson. Hey, this is your equipment that you're going to need in your toolbox. 10-foot ladder, adhesion test kit, or special instructions. Hey, make sure that there's no other signs that might impact the job site. And it's as simple as, is this a replacement sign? Yes, it is. Or no. If yes, is the old sign still present? Yes, it is. Is the sign illuminated? Yes, it is. Document the sign condition. We'll just go good. Hey, let's add a photo. Everybody say hi. Thank you for that. Appreciate the audience participation. We're going to use that photo, and boom, there it is. Now that photo is embedded within that form. So you're not going to spend hours and hours compiling photos and measurements and everything else, because as you go along, you're going to hit that save button, and as soon as you hit save, that section is done, goes to the report, right back to the portal, and you'll have it instantaneously. And is that important? The answer is yes, it is. Because in sales studies, you are 65% more likely to win the business if you are the first person to be able to issue a quote. And if you're able to issue a quote with all the information and all the data, with the photos and the measurements and everything else in a very nice professional manner like this, well, you're certainly going to win the business because you're going to be able to do these more efficiently. Electrical present on the side? Yep. We're going to need a subcontractor? No. Any accessibility issues? Yep. Storage items blocking the box. These are all pieces of information that certainly would be really helpful for an installer to have after you've got this work, right? And making sure that you're communicating with the customer. Hey, here's a photo of what we saw. You got to remove these boxes. Or there's a clearance issue. Or, you know what, let's jump out into something like, let's change to a channel letter sign. So we have elevation and site plan. Measure sideband, linear frontage, windows, doors. This was the other thing, by the way, that a lot of our working group told us is that when we go to a site, we want to collect all the information that we can. So even though we're only working on the front of the building, we want information about the side of the building and windows and doors, because how many times has this happened to you? A customer has said, hey, come on out, I want to do a channel letter sign, and then calls you back a couple days later and says, hey, I want to do some window graphics. And now you got to drive all the way back. What this encourages that sales surveyor to do is capture everything about that job site so that you have it in your pocket. So when that customer calls, he's calling you, you know exactly what it is that you can do. But things like electrical safety, electrical lines within the work zone, call before you dig. Are these things that you guys have missed in the past? Mullions, by the way. That also seems to be a very popular one to miss. Mullions, right? Yeah, I see some laughter out there. But you get the idea. And at the end of every section, we have a to-do and punch list. So by section, right, when they're there, oh, you know what? The electrical box was locked. This is why I can't do this or complete this. Therefore, please finish, please have the customer unlock the box and we'll swing by some other time. Or notes. I'm concerned about the tree and being able to get our bucket truck in there. But anyway, that is SignPilot.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you to stop on by, see a full demo of the portal, see a demo of this. SignPilot will be released in the next month and a half or so. And so one of the reasons that we didn't release it before ISA was because we wanted that last chance to talk to a whole bunch of customers to make sure that we had checked off the box to making sure that we were creating the best user experience, but also that we're covering all of the finest details. And I'll tell you, I'll be very honest, there's one or two things where we said, that is a really good idea. We didn't think about that, and our working group didn't think about that. So we appreciate you bringing that up. But stop by the booth, sign up for our accelerator program, which is where you'll get, we'll communicate back with you about when things are coming out. And if you'd like to get access to the beta, you can go ahead and do that. We'll also have some exclusive pricing offers for you as well, for that. But thank you for spending your time with me today. Hopefully it was I know it was informative, and hopefully it was relaxing. And if you'd like to ask me any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have after this session. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your time in Orlando.